Internets, hello you absolute lovelies. Let's talk all about Daredevil Born Again Episode 3, or as I'm calling it, the road to the Superhero Registration Act. This is something I've been thinking was coming for a very long time. This is something I think is going to be hugely important for the X-Men and a world that hates and fears them, even Thunderbolt soon. This is something, especially after the events of Miss Marvel, I think the MCU needs to build to, and it was a really big step in this episode. Very excited to talk about it. Cannot wait, in fact, to talk about some of the things I think this will impact going forward, and it's in the right show. This is a street-level show, doing street-level stuff absolutely correctly. I adored this episode, but before we get into it, please hit that subscription bell. Rapidly approaching 50K, which I'm just honored by. Thank you. When we hit 50,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a 50 comic giveaway from my own collection, a mix of like DC, Marvel, Image, Dynamite. I read everything. Gonna mail 50 comics to someone that subscribes to this page. Very excited to do so. So hit that subscription bell if you like movies, if you like TV, and especially if you like comic books. I cover that all on this page. And also while you're pressing buttons, press a like in this video so the algorithm will like it. And most of all, let's have a conversation in the comments below. Let's talk about Daredevil. Let's talk about this episode of Daredevil. I want to know if you're thinking my theories are crazy, if you think this could go that way. I want to know what you thought of this episode because I loved it. Let's talk Born Again. This episode is why you need street level characters. This is exactly street level done right. The closest I think we've had in the MCU, for me anyway, is the beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming. The first half of Homecoming feels like a very street level story, and I think we need a lot more of that, not less. This is from the perspective of what vigilante justice would actually feel like. A slice of life vigilante thing is so necessary to make this world feel real, to make it feel lived in, and I love that it's from the lawyer perspective. We did not have a single moment of Daredevil in costume for 2 episodes now, and I think this show is better for it. Not only did we use the parallel of obviously Matt and the White Tiger, but we got the impact of White Tiger out of the suit, so we cared about the man. That way when you see the man in the suit, you care about who he is. Now, we also need to eventually have the world and New York and, at least a sizable percent of the population turn on vigilantes. And that's what Kingpin is setting up. That's what Mayor Fisk is setting up very publicly. And I love that we were able to really connect to White Tiger in a way that really brings us a human connection to the point where that group of his peers, like the jury, found him not guilty. And I also really love that 2 moments in the show, in a 45-minute episode, I genuinely did not know what was going to happen next. The writing is so good that the Nikki Torres turning on, the whole proceedings I saw coming. But I love that the chase scene was shot and edited so rapidly and so fever-pitched that I was tense about whether he'd make it or not. And the classic, cup trick where they moved which car it was. And by the way, I want to give credit to Greg over at Real Rejects. I'm filming at his place and I do my reactions there. So if you want to see me react to it live, check out the Real Rejects reactions. But I want to give credit to him. He pointed out how Nolan-esque it was. This episode had Nolan editing, it had some Nolan pacing, it had some Nolan framing, and I think that really enhanced the courtroom proceedings. But that part, 1, got my heart racing, and 2, the courtroom stuff was great lawyering for someone that has never studied law, like someone that views lawyer content, like that had that really good lawyer show dynamic. But I love that both the prosecutor and the defense had really great series of messages. Their monologues were solid, but by the end, their final statements, I didn't know which way it was going to go. So twice in an episode, I genuinely got to be surprised and excited. Like, I could have seen him being guilty and then Matt having to figure out a way to get him out of prison. I could also see the way they went, and then unfortunately the way White Tiger went down. Now, that was a brutal moment. I love that we got the Punisher iconography. I think that's also going to tie into the world that hates and fears vigilantes. I think that's going to also be weaponized. The iconography's already been appropriated, and I think that's going to be a big conversation. I'm really excited to see how Frank Castle comes back, and I assume it's going to be in relation to him not liking certain people using his symbol incorrectly. So I think that's wonderful. I don't think that was Frank in the last shots. I think it was someone impersonating Frank and misusing his symbol just as the cops have been. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. Also, White Tiger is a very important character in comic books in the sense of impact and how early the character's been around. He was a very impactful, he's the first Puerto Rican superhero. And then the character, which was like in the 70s, I believe, has a niece who is the White Tiger now. So a lot of people, when they think White Tiger, think the current iteration, and his niece is introduced in this episode. So I think White Tiger might end up becoming at least a Young Avenger type character, or, be important later on. So we set a lot of really cool comic-y stuff up in this episode. We have White Tiger and that brutal ending. We've got, you know, the niece being introduced. We've got the slow build of, you know, Wilson Fisk actually starting to mount up legally, using his power as mayor, things that will turn people against superheroes. So we've got Matt and Wilson have fought forever, but, you know, fist to fist. Now we've got lawyer Matt Murdock fighting Wilson Fisk in a very different way, and Fisk is going to cause all sorts of havoc in a broad way. Later on, by the way, in the comic books, Luke Cage becomes mayor after Fisk, and I think that's who's still mayor in the comics, and has to deal with the ramifications of all of this stuff. So I think this was a really big moment, because, to be honest, I think you need to get to people distrusting superheroes before we get to the X-Men. I think we need to get a world where the masks have relevance, as opposed to, like, everyone being unmasked in the MCU, and I also think we need more things like this, where it is street level to the point where we had an entire episode, no costumes whatsoever except White Tiger in his 2 brief scenes in suit, but we had actual dialogue about what it'd be like to live in this world, what it would be like to have vigilantes, and that be a strength of the character. As soon as Nikki Torres was out, that was the only way to go, and I love that Matt had to rationalize him not being a hero with someone mirroring so directly. Matt had to have a conversation with him man to man, and, you know, there was a moment I was like, is he going to tell him he's Daredevil? That's why he understands, but there was such beautiful writing in Matt processing his grief of not being Daredevil and feeling like he's still have that compulsion, but not being Daredevil, and knowing, you know, this is what Foggy would want. Foggy would want him to do everything in the courtroom, but still hearing that passion from White Tiger. It's who he is. It's what he is. It's the strength of the character. All of that's how Matt feels about Daredevil. So to see Matt processing that and living that, and this beautiful character we got, the beautiful scene work we got, was really something wonderful, all while Fisk is getting more control, more power. I love the dynamic that's forming between him and his wife. Vanessa has broken his trust, and that's never happened. The first 3 seasons on Netflix, that was everything to him. It was all for Vanessa. It was, I'll tell you everything, Vanessa. This is all for you, Vanessa. Now this schism is forming, and I love that it's, you know, the girlfriend of Matt Murdock, and I thought it was going to be Kingpin, you know, manipulating, but now it seems like just a good marriage counselor. I love the distance between them, but the little moments of flirtation, that there's still chemistry there. It doesn't feel black and white. I love that neither of them are in power right now. They're both trying to figure out what the power structure is, including, like, you know, the stuff going down at the docks and no one being in power. There's a power vacuum. She doesn't like the business being messed up. He doesn't want to mess up the mayor stuff, but neither of them wear white in this episode because no one's in power. The Kingpin is a white iconography. In the first episode, he very consciously didn't put on the white suit. He put on gray. She's wearing white. She's the one running the business. So I love the conversation about that, and that neither of them are right now in that position. So I thought the episode had incredible iconography, incredible visuals, great lawyering, incredible writing, really well paced. Like I said, I was guessing and I was energized, and it was thrilling, and it felt like a Daredevil comic book. Loved this episode. Episode 2 dipped slightly for me. I didn't love still an A- versus like an A. It's still a great episode, but I didn't love that we were like, did Matt kill those cops feeling? This episode obviously said, like, guy's got a black eye, and there's some cheeky dialogue there from Matt as well. I really enjoyed the tete-a-tete between Matt and the cop, but this episode, to me, didn't have some of those same flaws. It feels like it's going in a direction that feels cohesive and fair to all the characters, and yeah, this is right up there with episode 1 for me. Really loved this one. Really got a lot out of it. Very excited for this dynamic growing and growing. Very excited to see, like, this dynamic where are they going to be together at odds against Muse, who we briefly saw, very briefly, I believe, in the second episode. It's awesome. Daredevil Born Again. I watched episode 1 and 2 before I read anything about other people's opinions, obviously, because that's all we got, you know, in that chunk. I'm shocked more people aren't loving this show. I'm happy I am. I continue to be. I hope that you enjoy it as well. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you enjoying it as much as I am? Are you more on some of the angrier side of the internet that aren't enjoying it? Are you somewhere in between? I really want to know what you think of Daredevil Born Again so far. Please leave a comment below. Please leave a like in this video so it moves throughout the algorithm. And please hit that subscription bell if you haven't already. I'll be back next week with Daredevil Born Again episode 4. I am going out of town next week, but I will have these videos up on time. I'm going to get them sorted before I leave, but also going to probably doing some Blu-ray stuff, which I know some of you enjoy, sprinkled in while I'm out of town on trips. So keep your eyes peeled, get the notification bells on. I will talk to you lovely soon. I'll see you next week for more Daredevil, and I'll see you this weekend for some movie reviews. All right.